To briefly talk about my family background is not possible because I have a very large family. But I do have wonderful recollections of my grandmothers. My grandmother Carpenter was just a wonderfully productive and creative person. Her faithfulness throughout her life was just a testament to me. And my Nana, which is what we called my other grandmother, Brown, was a purveyor of stories and song. So she would pull her grandchildren on her lap and sing to them and to tell them stories. And many of those stories were stories of our heritage, of her grandmother, whose name was Mary Ann, who came to the United States on the gospel ship from Birmingham, England, and kind of settled amongst the saints and stayed and became members of the Restoration Church, the reorganized church. A very wonderful history that my grandmother left for all of us to understand where we came from. I can't tell you how many amazing sermons I've sat through listening to my dad and my mom, who was the polar opposite of my dad, who it was just so warm and relational and invitational to people. So our home was always a place of appointees staying and visiting, guests, ministers being with us. So as children, we had every opportunity to interact and to learn from lots and lots of people. So I consider that a huge blessing. And then meeting Bob and marrying Bob was just another additional faith-granting, faith-growing moment. His heritage and his beliefs have just been such a blessing in my life. So I'm very, very thankful for that. Our two children are blessings to us as well. I particularly remember in 1984 when Section 156 was first read. I was sitting in the auditorium. I can almost tell you which seat in the auditorium, with Sarah on my lap, who was 4 years old. And I remember hearing the words of Section 156 and the potential for what that might mean in the future for ministry, and thinking about my 4-year-old daughter. And it just is indelibly impressed upon me, that experience of freedom, of potential, for the future, and what that might mean in her life, what that would mean as blessing to the church. So that's been very important. And then similarly at the USA conference in 2013, another very freeing moment for us as we thought about our son Mark and his partner, and what a blessing and inclusiveness came from that conference that again blessed our family in ways that I'm so thankful for. As presiding evangelist and the new role that's set out before me at this point, I think there's really two distinct parts. One has to do with the doing, or the checklist of things that need to be done. And I think that Section 165 of the Doctrine and Covenants has very specific directions to the Order of Evangelists in terms of blessing. And so that's important. But also important is the being. And how shall we be evangelists? I can't think of another time in the history of the church that is so ripe or poised for that evangelist ministry to happen, to help people with their woundedness, their healings, their relationships, all of those aspects. It really, how to be together in spiritual presence, the ministry that evangelists can provide for people in a healing way, I think is really going to be very important.